Hello everyone, my name is Loco and welcome to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. Now what I've got for you today is a Terran versus Protoss, where for some reason we're starting off on the map Last Fantasy. And you know what, I kinda love it. This map has been gaining a little bit of traction lately. I don't know if players are just kind of tired of playing the other maps, or if they're actually slowly coming around on having a 3-player map in the map pool. Either way, spawning right here in the top section from the United States of America. We're looking inside of the main base of Estrella, and his opponent down in the bottom, right, with the blue SCVs, hailing of course from South Korea. We have a previous world champion, and he goes by the name of ByuN. Alrighty, now this particular series was recently played during one of the many weekly StarCraft 2 tournaments. This particular one actually from the Pegasaur events, and from what I understand, this series is amazing. So we'll find out together exactly what ended up going down. This is one of those maps that a lot of people just sort of shy away from because it is different. It's not necessarily bad, but usually StarCraft 2 is just a very difficult game, right? And there's only so many things that you can really manage in your brain when you're trying to pick up this game, so usually, a lot of players tend to favor the more standard, the more approachable maps, but I really do like seeing a map like this added into the map pool, and honestly, for me personally, if it was up to me alone, I would add a whole lot more of them, just because it keeps the game fresh, and I think a lot of you enjoy watching games, at least I do, on maps like this one as well. So real quick, it's a 3-player map. There is a stupid amount of speed-up circles right over here in the middle. In general, the expansion layouts are also a little bit different. Like, for example, on most StarCraft 2 maps, I feel like this is pretty apparent when you play on the map. On most StarCraft 2 maps, when you take a third, you sort of expand away from the opponent. But no matter the direction in which you expand on this one, it always kind of feels like you're expanding towards your opponent, and it just feels a little uncomfortable. It just makes everything a little bit tricky, and obviously Terran players have found some really juicy siege tank locations as well that they can abuse on a map like this particular one. Although last time I checked, for this particular matchup, for Terran versus Protoss, it was about 50-50 at the tournament level. So about 50% of the games went in favor of Terran, and the other half went in favor of Protoss. So statistically speaking, at the very least, like maybe something's changed. But I highly doubt it. Statistically speaking, this is a map that is totally playable for, well, either race in this particular instance. It's going to be a Stalker here into a Sentry. Twilight Council as well on the back of this. No surprise. We should be getting that. Yep, there we go. Energy recharge to allow the Sentry to send that Phoenix straight across the map. And it's going to give Estrella all of the information that he needs. ByuN is opting to go for a cheeky little Widowmine drop. Completely accepting that he's going to get scouted as well. Terran players at this point in the meta have sort of given up on the idea that they can hide anything from these Sentry openers. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind it, seeing the Phoenix fly into the Widowmine there, just to maybe put it on cooldown, although obviously the cooldown is not that long. Medevac is going to be popping out in a moment though, and for now, Estrella is just keeping tabs of exactly what the follow-up is going to be. He sees the double Widowmine, he sees the Marine production, he sees the tech lab, he knows there's no add-on on the starport. So at this point, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that this is going to be a Widowmine Marine drop. Or at the very least Widowmines. He could keep the Marines at home. Now of course, because of that, ByuN may very well, because he knows the opponent knows, he may very well decide to do something else. He has now burrowed the Widowmines in a random location. It feels a little odd, so look at this. He's flying an empty medevac across the map. He's trying to be a bit of a master at baiting. As a bit of an expert myself, this is so stupid. It worked out. Nicely done, but I mean, it's only an hallucinated Phoenix. So maybe it's really not that big of a deal. Either way, we do have to unload those Widowmines once more. Ooh. Whoa, oh, careful, careful. Maybe don't use those units for fighting if you don't have to. Alright, a little bit of lost mining time. But I think Estrella can be quite happy with this early game, all things considered. He tries to snatch one of those Widowmine kills. But on the back of this, we will see a third Nexus coming up nice and early. It's only at 2 gateways at this point in time, so Estrella, being a rather greedy man, builds up triple Nexus before adding on any real gateway production. And now after the third Nexus is started up, a Robo Facility together with 2 additional Gas Geysers. You do have to keep in mind though, here as the Protoss, that there is still a Medevac hanging out somewhere in the dead space. And you never really know, right? When it's going to commit, the Widowmine is going to go down, maybe? No? Oof. I mean, the Medevac did. And I guess in the end, the Widowmines will as well, but Estrella getting a little bit ahead of himself. Admittedly, he was also busy on the other side of the map trying to poke a bunch of those Terran units to death. And ultimately, if you look at the losses right now, it's really not the end of the world, right? We've got ourselves quite a few, well, probes dying, I suppose, but obviously a lot of those Terran units also did bite the dust. A lot of Terran players at the highest level have been messing around with Terran mech in this particular matchup. Even though it feels really odd, players like, for example, Clem have actually found a way to make Terran mech not look absolutely garbage against Protoss. I still don't really like it that much, personally. It seems that just like a 4-gate all-in becomes extremely difficult to hold. So we do have the Raven now committing as well, just to be a little bit more of a nuisance. I quite like it. There's not a lot of dead space, actually, on Last Fantasy, so those barriers here are blocking it. Either way, ByuN is not somebody that's really too keen on that. He is very much so a bio man, it seems. Relying on Marines mostly. Nice little bit of Stalker control here, though. One of them ends up going down, but he gets quite a bit of damage in return. I would say one of the main annoying things right now that Terran can do, and I really like this here from ByuN, is just keeping this Raven around. Occasionally jumping in whenever there's a little bit of energy available, dropping an auto turret or 2, and then, well, waiting for it to accumulate energy once more. It's one of those units that tends to actually stack up a lot of damage over the course of a game. Now a few Stalkers are starting to bleed out, though. A little bit of miscontrol there if I am, very critical of Estrella. I do feel like, maybe 2, maybe even 3 of those Stalkers really didn't need to die. Okay. Command Center number 3 will begin right here for the Terran player. He's got Stimpack, he's got Combat Shields, and very soon he will have +1 infantry attacks as well. So that's, of course, a big power spike for the Terran army. And even though a bunch of Marines have died, a Medevac has died with that drop earlier, the siege tanks are all still around. Already, though, there is a Colossus available. We're gonna go for a bit of a elevator play straight into the main base here of the Protoss. So let's have a look. Siege tanks obviously are always something to keep in mind. He did leave a little bit of army behind, trying to go around the side. In the meantime, the auto turret once more gets popped down, but yeah, ByuN doesn't really want to overcommit. He of course does have that third command center started, right? So it's not like this is a very committed fight. He can always just go back, and I think that's what he's doing right now. We rarely actually see Stargate openers in this matchup anymore from Protoss. If you don't want to take any damage... Oh, wait, it's been in range this whole time? If you don't want to take any damage from... for example, Widowmine drops, or for example, Ravens, opening Phoenixes into Colossi is not a bad idea, but it's fallen out of favor a little bit in the meta as of late. Either way, Templar Archives right now on the back of this here for Protoss, whereas the Ghost production has begun for Terran. ByuN now has got a really solid economy here. And obviously, because of those mules, even though he's been economically, at least as far as the worker count goes, he's been a little bit behind. But because of those beautiful yellow mining machines, he's going to be A-okay. The main problem now, though, becomes the fact that ByuN needs to deal with those High Templar. So, High Templar are not going to be available yet, but it's not going to be too much longer until Estrella finishes up that Storm research. And it's, of course, one of the big problems that Terran players are currently facing in this particular matchup. I've actually not been, if I'm being brutally honest, I've not been too impressed by ByuN's micro as of late. Which is kind of weird because he's known as a micro player. Historically, I mean, he's been known as Micro Jackson, right? I mean, it's a running joke in the StarCraft community for a very long time. But ByuN has been dancing in the storm a little bit too much as of late. I've seen, probably about 24 games or so of ByuN in this matchup lately. And in some games, he's performing really, really well, but in other instances, I feel like he's not really paying very close attention to his army, and he's just taking more damage than he really should. The thing is, right, High Templar are more oppressive right now than they ever have been. At least since, like, they removed the Kijkwijzer Amulet research, which must have been the early 2010s. It's been a good few years. But I feel like ByuN has always been somebody that can really micro out of the storm and can still land those EMPs and pull off the really fancy multitasking and all the rest of it. And I feel like lately he hasn't really been able to get that ball rolling so much. Usually he gets that very momentum-heavy style very nicely at this stage in the game, but look, he decides to go back again. He's playing a little bit more cautiously. He's waiting until the 2-2 is done, not really willing to take any big risks. And I wonder if this is really necessary. Like, obviously, it's scary to play against the High Templar. It's scary to let the Protoss player just, get up to that unit composition, but the alternative is that you're effectively just sitting here and waiting until Protoss gets the entirety of the map going. Like, ByuN is ahead in army. He's got 170 versus 100-ish supply from the opponent. We should be able to get some sort of work done, but ByuN has been playing this a lot more cautiously as of late. Evidently, he's not a fan of pushing into Protoss right now, and to be fair, this is a very scary army. We have force fields, we've got Colossi, we've got Storm, of course. It's only a part of the army because the other half is standing a little bit further up. But look, if you let Estrella do whatever he likes, he's gonna sprinkle High Templar all over the map. He's gonna create little spotter units all over too. Look at the vision here of Protoss right now on the minimap already. We're just 11.5 minutes in. If you let him take all these bases, I think it's gonna be so difficult to fight Protoss later on. I mean, that's clearly the plan right now for ByuN, to just sort of let the Terran, let the Protoss player macro up and get up to this maxed out state, but it's not like Terran players have been wildly successful competing with Protoss in the late game as of late either. So, anyways, we are gonna go into the mass command center style once again. ByuN will be firing up the +1 arrow weapons. Another thing, if I can be critical, another thing that I feel like has been sort of lacking whenever ByuN does play this style, in the past, he was very keen to go into Mass Liberator, but lately he hasn't really been doing that much either. So he gets up to this like Mass Command Center style, and then he just sort of sits around the Marine Marauder Medevac Viking Ghost. No Mass Liberators. Not really that slow of a... I don't know. I'm a little conflicted by it. Maybe ByuN will prove me wrong in this particular game, but I've got the feeling that he is giving Estrella a whole lot of wiggle room. And generally speaking, at least in the current meta of StarCraft 2, well, most StarCraft 2 players are scared of letting Protoss do whatever they like. In my mind, at the very least, action is very much so on ByuN, and ByuN is saying, yo, I am gonna do what I do best. I'm gonna play SimCity. 4 command centers all at once. Actually, 5, because this one was just added as the first one's finished. So he's going into the Ghost's personal cloaking. We're going into the +3/+3. He's adding on additional starports. He's scanning left, right, and center just to see what's out there, killing a few observers. Effectively letting Estrella do whatever he likes. Do you think this is the right way to play against Protoss? I am not convinced. The problem is, right? Hypothetically speaking, if this game goes on for like another half hour like this, and the entirety of the map mines out, Protoss is always going to be able to outpace Terran. Because Protoss is generally at least one base up in this matchup. So, if Protoss is always going to be able to mine a full extra base, aren't you just... I don't know. Anyways, we have an engagement over here. Neither player, though, really looking too committed. Tactical nukes? Really? Okay. You know what? Let him cook. I can... Is that what the kids say? Let him cook. W's in the comment section of the video. Something like that. I don't know. Sometimes I watch those big live streamers, and 99% of chat is just W's and L's. It's pretty cringe. I don't really know exactly what it's all about, but anyways. W's for ByuN, I suppose. For real. Low key, no cap. I like nukes. Alright, well, anyways. Now that we got that out of our system. I apologize. We've got ourselves the Fleet Beacon together with the Fusion Core. Like, on God, that was cringe. But anyways. Ooh. Can we kill him with the water balloons? No, we kill him right there with the stalkers. Stargate Productions here. Second Cyber Core coming up as well for Australia. So look, Australia is already mining... Well, he's got more bases than he can effectively mine, right? He's sitting at 93 probes, but he's got so many mineral clusters that he can't even really effectively control any of the map. It's funny, like he's got more bases than he can really reliably mine for now. So maybe it's not, like it's easy to get a little carried away here too, right? To just count the bases on the map and think, oh, Terran is kind of, you know, stuck in their section and Australia clearly has more. But Australia has so many mineral fields that even with 99 workers, which is what he's on right now, he can't really do it all. He can't really mine everything. High-sec auto-tracking coming up. Building armor, researching as well. +2 air weapons coming up here for Australia. When we have the +1 air armor as well. More command centers are added into the mix. Okay, so effectively what this game thus far has come down to is the StarCraft 2 equivalent of like a 20 minutes no rush. I mean, they have been hitting each other in the face a little bit, and we do see a couple of storms going down and all the rest of it too, but for a 16-minute game with this much economy, neither player has really lost a whole lot just yet. More command centers, man. How many command centers do you want, ByuN? I think if ByuN can wave a magic wand, he would probably say something along the lines of 20. We have triple observer, all rally to the same spot. One very effective little scan right over there, although he's gonna have to do a follow-up scan just to pick off the last one too. Look at the banks at this point though. And that's what has me, that's what has me a little bit concerned. Australia is already over 10,000 minerals in the bank. ByuN has been spending, I mean, he's been mining a similar amount, but he has been spending all of his minerals on additional command centers. Mothership coming up. Caduceus reactors researching too and just finished. These guys are effectively getting everything. This is a billionaire StarCraft game right now. Both players basically just point at what they want, and then they get it. The problem is that at some point you get everything. At some point there's nothing else anymore that you can really gain. Ooh, some big EMPs. So I think it's about time we start trading out. And obviously these expansions are also now very close together. Looks like ByuN has found a nice little opportunity to slice off a few of those very expensive Protoss units. Australia, though, is replacing the lost supply right now with carrier production, so that's real curious to me. Additional Stargates coming up, too. He's going up to a grand total of 5, it seems. Some nice storms are going down, but the storms are bruising rather than killing. Colossus there, a little bit, too deep down the cliff, tiptoed into the speed-up circle. We have another High Templar flank. Hello? High Templar did not quite cast the Psionic Storm, but we have another one on the back of this. That one did cast Storm, but also did get EMP'd. Great engagements here, though, for ByuN across the board. Certainly grabbing the upper hand as far as these trades go. And while Australia has money to replace it, he needs to be very careful that he does not take an insane amount of fights just like this one, because that was pricey. In the meantime, the Mothership has been set up maybe for a flank? Not exactly sure. But if you look at the resources lost right now, look at that. We were very even just a little bit ago. Now suddenly, there are way more losses on the side of the Protoss. There goes the Mama ship flank. Are we going to try and cut him off with the retreat path? Are we going to pop a time warp right over there? Cloaking field gets activated, but there's nothing underneath her to cloak. Australia, what are we up to right now? He just pressed the button. This is effectively the same thing that we see in Gold League a lot in like viewer-submitted games, where we see the Void Rays activating prismatic alignment against units that don't benefit from it. We just activated the cloaking field upgrade for absolutely no reason at all. At least there's no downside like prismatic alignment, but that is a little bit weird to see at this level of StarCraft. Either way, loads of probes go down, and while the entirety of the Terran army, other than the ghosts that now run away with their cloaks, well, maybe they won't. They're out of energy. Yeah. The entirety of the Terran army did also get destroyed. They still got extreme value. Maybe, though, Estrella, using the speed here of those Protoss reinforcements, maybe he can strike back and at least get one base for his troubles. Not bad at all. Liberator production, by the way, has kicked in right now. So we're up to 12 libs. Looks like both players want to be making a base together. Aww. What do you get when you cross a command center and a nexus? I don't know, dude. But I feel like the Zelnaga would disagree with this merger. Liberators actually in these numbers are kind of terrifying. Obviously, Liberator air-to-air damage is usually just entirely forgotten about. But I have seen games, especially from Zergs, you know, when suddenly there's like a whole lot of Corruptors up in the air and you're just sort of ignoring the count of Liberators, and you can actually lose all of your flying units quite easily against the Libs. Now, I'd be very surprised if we see carriers dying to it, but it is certainly something to keep in mind. Recall right now, though, this army is going to go home, back to the safety of Mama. It does mean, though, that this entirety of the Protoss army, it gets spotted right now. Okay, it does mean, of course, that it's all the way up north. Thought ByuN for a moment was thinking about attacking down south, but he scanned and immediately noticed where the Protoss units went. Storms right over here, Stalkers right over here as well, just to try and deny as many of those libs as possible. But the Liberators, some of them will be sacrificed, but many of them are still around, and ByuN is thinking about using this as an opportunity to potentially kill the base. Too many Protoss units, though, for now. But nice army movement here from ByuN across the board. Despite the fact that the Protoss units can quite literally teleport, he's doing a good job. Kiting back right now to the safety of the missile turrets, to the safety of the Planetary Fortress 2. A couple of Novas do roll through this as well. You gotta be careful, but I think the Planetary is a good enough anchor to fall back to. Yeah, he's actually going Mass Liberator. So he's not even adding on a whole lot of additional Vikings here, which feels like the more logical choice. But I don't mind it. We do, by the way, have multiple Ghost Academies. Yeah, 3 of them in total. I would really like to see some of them adding a nuke into the mix as well. Looks like the Liberator is going to be able to outrun the Mothership quite well, but he decides to siege up, and therefore Mama is going to be able to get a kill. Mama, go! Bzzzt, bzzzt. All right. She just sat on him. Did you see that? She just covered him with her body. And the Liberator disappeared. All right. Additional carriers, though, are being added into the mix. And the numbers are getting a little bit out of hand now. Like, the Viking numbers, as we do now finally have a tactical nuke being used, the Viking numbers are not that great. Now, this is awkward. We have one High Templar staring off into the sunset. It does end up going down, but obviously you spend a lot of resources on a nuke just to kill the one High Templar. Not the most cost-efficient thing. It's not like this base was really mining in the first place. But it is going to be distracting, right? And that's the big part right now. So we obviously see a big notification on the minimap that there is a nuke flying in that general direction. That is not what the players see. All Estrella knows is that there is a nuke somewhere, and he has to find the tiny red dot. Storms are decent, interceptors are nice, but I'm quite liking the way that ByuN is playing this out. Mothership, though, is going in around the back. Mama is trying to be really sneaky. Mama, where are you going? Mama, no! Okay, well, she's a little old. Sometimes she loses track of where she's going. She just crushed a Liberator, and I guess she was, beaming with confidence. Either that or maybe Estrella was actually just trying to trade it out. I wouldn't be surprised. Even though the Mothership can be really quite nice to have, mostly for the recall, it also does take up 8 supply, which is actually kind of a lot. Maybe it's better to just replace it with carriers just like this. The Terran army, though, is once more scrambling in this direction. Keep in mind that the entirety of the ground units here of Protoss can be cut off. Viking numbers, by the way, are now up to 17. Liberator in the south, trying to be annoying, does end up getting destroyed. Another tactical nuke will be flying across. Similar location, but this time around going after minerals alone. ByuN is actually playing this out very intelligently. You love to see it. So far, it seems to me like Estrella really isn't finding anything, right? I mean, the storm over there was good, but that was also very much so an overextension from ByuN. Yeah, ByuN dancing in the storm a little bit too long there with the Vikings. Protoss reinforcements obviously need to be respected. When you have 22 gateways, you can remax pretty much in an instant. Now, obviously, you don't really want to be remaxing with only those units, but sometimes it is the best choice if you need to get that Terran army off your back. ByuN is currently sitting at 11 barracks, 1 factory, and 6 starports. So factory production not really relevant anymore at this stage in the game, but he can quite rapidly remax too. Not quite at the same level, though. Either way, we are going back to carriers, and we are going back to the good old mama ship. Finally, though, Protoss is going to be able to kill the base up here. It's taken him a little while. This was like the 7th time that he attacked this particular location, but he got the job done eventually. And this is the real scary thing about Protoss. Sure, you may win some of the engagements, but are you really winning the war? Estrella has just been mining so much. Either way, though, speaking of mining a lot, we now have an insane amount of mules mining some of these bases out too. ByuN sitting at 10, soon to be 9 orbital commands. So he can drop mules and scans for days and get at least some of his additional income. Now, I've seen this before, but then vice versa. Previously, it was a Nexus trying to be added on top of a... Oh god, this is really cursed. The amount of things that are stacking together. Alright, the mothership is here. Scan immediately reveals, though, where that Protoss army went off to. ByuN not surprised to find it over here, but it may very well be stuck in a corner. Keep in mind that Estrella can recall, but he won't be able to really get a lot of value here out of the mothership. What about just straight up fighting this Terran army, though? A lot of the Protoss units here are EMP'd. Storm is now gone. We have one more Colossus in the mix, but that one also just got wiped off the map. Still, the carriers themselves fully upgraded. They are not messing around, and while many of them are reduced in HP and many of the interceptor ships have disappeared, most of the carriers themselves ended up surviving that engagement, and that's big. Takes a long time for, yeah, Terran to really destroy those. The Vikings right now, though, trying to grab a few of the units that strayed a little bit too far in the direction of the Terran bases. Kills only 1. The Nexus, by the way, still lives. Yeah, we really need to get Storms here for sure. There's about 0% chance you can fight all of those Vikings straight up. But Storms, of course, do very well against clumped up units. Planetary Fortress here in the mix. Liberators are sieged up every which way. Not enough carriers, really, and those Ghosts and... Well, they're just all having a great time, right? Getting those Archons underneath the clumped up Protoss, or the clumped up Terran units here is pretty much impossible. Scan reveals that at the very least up north, the base can be reacquired. One of the orbital commands has been assigned with that task. 15 High Templar. Get warped in all at the same time. Just gonna be for Archons, it seems. Estrella, by the way, built up to 80 workers again. Really trying to maximize his income. He's effectively going for, like, the ultimate army that Protoss players like to make against Zerg, but I wonder if against Terran this really is the right call. Look at these EMPs! The Ghosts are just destroying everything, and just like that, in an absolute war on Last Fantasy, it is ByuN who wins game number 1. Next up, we find ourselves on the map Ley Lines. And in case you're wondering why we rarely see Mass Archon against Terran, I think that previous fight gave you a great explainer as to why. They're phenomenal against Zerg, but Ghosts just absolutely tear them apart. Estrella's bank, of course, was rapidly depleting, and he still had a lot of gas available. He decided to drop it onto a ton of Archons. But clearly, that did not work out for him at all. Okay. Now we are on Ley Lines. Certainly another map where you can play the Turtley style again. But in my mind, it really does take two to play that sort of approach. At the very least, Terran needs to be fully on board. A lot of Protoss players don't necessarily want to be focusing on that style every single time. Even though most Protoss players are quite comfortable playing the macro game, ByuN showed us how you can certainly dismantle it in well, a long game of Terran versus Protoss. And I think that probably also gives me an update, right? Like, I was being a little bit critical of the way that ByuN has been playing as of late. It also is a nice update as to what ByuN is actually trying to achieve when he does play those long games. I guess that's every once in a while. He gets halted before he gets to that ultimate late game, and he never really gets the snowball going. But the slow suffocation is clearly what ByuN is aiming for. Okay. Now, it's once more a very quick sentry. It's once more going to be those hallucinated phoenixes, and it is always difficult here for Terran to really deny any of that. It's one of the big criticisms, actually, that StarCraft players currently have. I feel like that sentiment, at the very least, is growing. A lot of players, a lot of casters, a lot of fans, I mean, myself included, I think a lot of us sort of miss being able to hide strategies. There's a bit of a push right now for reducing scouting across the board. So not just hallucinated phoenixes, but also, for example, I don't know, for Zerg, like overlords and all that. Dude, Estrella, can we stop doing that, mate? His first instinct when he sees the Widowmine coming in is to, like, attack it with the probes. I remember the days, man, when the norm was to lose half a mineral line to a Widowmine. Obviously, those days are long gone, but... Anyways, we never really see Protoss going for, like, a Dark Templar all-in. Or, I don't know, say, for example, Terran trying to hide a Blue Flame Hellion opener. Something crazy like that. It's just because, across the board, it's quite easy to scout out exactly what the opponent has got going. Scouting in general, especially for Protoss right now, in any matchup, has become very easy. Obviously, some of that is a side effect, right? As we have the Widowmines once more coming in, but some of that is a side effect just to players getting better. So the general skill level has climbed tremendously over the years. Whereas I'm sure on the ladder, right? If you're a ladder hero... So we do have Blink, by the way, done right now, but it's only 2 gateways, and again, a quick third. Nice repairs over here. If you're a ladder hero, there's a very real chance that you can still die all the time to those silly all-ins. But generally speaking, the higher the MMR becomes, the higher you climb up on the ladder, the less early game variety there is, and I kind of miss it. I think having a bit of early game variety is really nice. Like, remember when we used to see players like, for example, Bly, go for all of the proxy hatchery strategies and all the hyper-aggressive all-ins? As a Zerg player, I don't think there's a single Zerg right now that believes that that is actually a viable style to play at the highest level. Maybe it is. Maybe we just need somebody like Bly to show us the way once more, but I kind of miss it. I think it's really fun. Either way, some of that also maybe has to do with the fact that Dark went off to the military, right? Although, he'll probably be back at some point. I know that Dark is still tweeting about StarCraft 2, like once a week or so. He just recently posted a picture of, like, his trophy cabinet at home, and I know he's been laddering a little bit as well on the Korean server, so he's still playing, and I feel like he is fully intending on coming back. Nice interception right here by Estrella. Catches a full medevac full of units. Third command center coming up right now for ByuN. And he is adding on some additional barracks as well. Going up to 5. No surprise there. I thought for a second he was going up to 4 barracks. Would have been a little bit odd, but no. He already has the triple Rex here. Stimpack, combat shields, +1 infantry weapons. All of it is finishing up. Storm, of course, already done again. Estrella really being quite greedy here, right? So this is double gate straight into a third Nexus with very fast Storm. This is the type of stuff that can straight up lose you games if you're unlucky. But ByuN has been rather passive as of late. What about this attack right over here, though? You know what? This is a nice little push here. Estrella comes in with an army that is about 90% spellcaster. Part of the reason, though, that it's working is because of this. Yeah. ByuN had just loaded up 2 medevacs full of units. He sees a recall, and he recognizes that indeed it is about time to go back home. Nice exchange there across the board, though, but we did see a bunch of the High Templar going down. And High Templar are anything but cheap. Manual retargeting right there onto the probes, just to get a little bit more juice out of that very first Liberator. Ghost Academy coming up now again for ByuN. And we'll have to see, right? Where are we gonna take this game from here? In the previous match, we've seen the Terran just sit back and basically let Protoss do whatever they like. Now, I think part of that is the map design. Last Fantasy in general is quite choky, so it's difficult to really find a large piece of open terrain other than the very middle, but because of the speed circles there, it's not quite your conventional open bit of terrain. Ley lines, I think, is going to be a little bit more difficult to pull that off in. Anyways, we have a Zealot drop inside of the main. Quite a few units are available, but only 4 Zealots here in total. Just so he can pick them up again. Decides to not pick them up for some reason. Slow reaction speed right there from Estrella. Robo Bay coming up right here as well for the American Protoss. So he's looking for a second source of splash damage here in just a moment. And I'm assuming we're going to fire up the +2/+2. We don't yet have an armory. Yeah, we also hit a little bit of a supply block. Can we please make the engineering bay and an armory here? Maybe ByuN is actually planning on being quite committed here with the current army that he's got, but I would be quite surprised. He doesn't yet have barracks 6, 7, and 8 here. No, he decides to go into Command Center 4 instead. That means that his upgrades are going to be trailing behind a little bit. It's not the end of the world, but generally speaking, at this stage in the game, you would already have this armory done. Yeah, okay, he starts them up right now. Both players may be a little bit tired after that first game. We see a couple of unconventional, sloppy mistakes for this level. Ultimately, though, right, if your goal is to basically not die for the next 20 minutes, which was effectively what ByuN was aiming for in the previous game, maybe rushing up the upgrades really isn't that important. Usually, Terran is very timing attack oriented, where you effectively go for any of your attacks when the upgrades are done. But if you're planning on just waiting until the late game anyways, maybe it doesn't really matter. This Terran army here looks like it can overpower that of the Protoss, but part of that is because all of the Zealots and a bunch of the High Templar are on the other side of the map at the moment. Estrella, again, is happy to play the macro game, it seems. Starport number 2 coming up. Factory in such a location that it can actually spot any of the incoming, what are they called? Warp prisms. Ooh, nice EMP there. Okay, this Protoss army is gonzo. Really? We could have chased it a little bit more, but ByuN actually being very conservative here. Zealot warping in the main base. Factory did spot it, so at least it's going to give him a little bit of a heads up. Storm over here could be nice, but I mean, this Terran army doesn't really care. It can just run through it. Push in the main base, also easily denied by ByuN. And again, I feel like the ByuN of the past would look at this Protoss performance and think, huh, I am just going to go kill him. That is usually not a terrible idea when you are this far ahead. So effectively, the entirety of the game has gone well. All you now need to go ahead and do is finish it off. Difficult to pull off, though, against that energy recharge ability. And I guess ByuN prefers, rather than taking the risk of playing the all-in, or for example, pushing with 2/2 upgrades finishing up, he's effectively saying, okay, I am ahead. What am I going to use that moment for? I'm going to add on additional command centers. I'm going to go into my additional Liberator production. We'll add on a fusion core. So he techs up rather than try to go and win the game. And I feel like that's the mindset change that has happened for ByuN over the last few months. We're lacking a little bit of killer instinct, but I think it's also because of the fact that he's just not had a lot of success with it. Fleet Beacon, because of it, is coming up, though. Estrella's like, yo, you don't want to fight? Okay, perfect. I will make more expansions. I will add on some additional tech of my own. And looks like we're going to be playing some static defense in the middle of the map. Estrella is beginning the tower defense strategy. Okay. We've seen this quite a bit from Showtime as of late, specifically against Zerg, but you could definitely do something similar as well against Terran. Where in some of the games, Showtime literally builds like 50 plus photon cannons. Another starport. +1 air weapons is going to finish up in a moment. 4 command centers on the production tab. Okay. It's an uncloaked observer. Ugh. The EMP right there. Uncloaking it for just a moment. It looks wrong. It's like a nude observer. I don't know, man. Can I even broadcast that onto the internet? I don't know. It's like watching a High Templar, or sorry, a Dark Templar get EMP'd. Ugh. Nobody wants to see that. Either way, we're gonna go into the upgrades again. This time, rather than going carriers, Australia is prioritizing Tempests. Fair enough. Caduceus Reactor coming up again for the Terran here. So, Caduceus Reactor, we're going to have the Liberator ranged upgrade. He's already got it done. He is going for all of the same moves. Mass Command Center all over the Terran side of the map. Disruptor production, more Stargates, secondary Cybercore. We are once more playing the most passive game possible. So what will we really see change here for Australia? Because he took some really rough engagements across the board. This is also terrible for him. Getting the entire army here EMP'd. Basically killing nothing of the Terran. I mean, obviously it's only minerals. Usually the big bottleneck is gas, although in the previous game at the very end we found out that that was not quite the case. But I feel like Australia had a series of unfortunate fights that all went in favor of ByuN. And in the end, well, he just couldn't really compete anymore, right? So I feel like, broadly speaking, and that's always one of the difficult things, the main thing that Australia has to change is do everything a little bit better. Yeah. So when something doesn't go well, maybe just do the same thing but better. I know. It's life advice right there. I should become a motivational speaker. You can hire me for events. Do the same thing, but better. That'll be the entire morale of everything. Look at this. We are playing static defense. We are playing tower defense. You love to see it. Australia is going to try and see if he can slowly choke his opponent out. The planetary got the kill. With so many photon cannons. I think that's the plan. It's a bit weird. And I don't know if you can really call a 16-minute cannon push a cannon rush. But in a way, it does kind of feel like he is trying to contain his opponent on a certain number of bases. We just have lines of static defense and structures all over. It's a big investment, though, from Australia, right? I think what we're switching up here is... Well, he's trying to take the better engagements first and foremost. But rather than going for 1,000,000 Zealot run-bys, he's dumping those minerals onto pylons, photon cannons, shield batteries, and all the rest of it. Bunch of gateways in the mix as well, just to be able to reinforce it very rapidly if he needs to. We'll have to see if that works out. More Stargates coming up. And I think because of this, he's also going Tempests. So Tempests obviously have an insane amount of range, especially with the Oracle's Revelation ability. So... Ooh. Nice splitty right there from ByuN. As long as he can back up to the safety of the static defense, he can keep on pushing. Now, what about this, though? And that's exactly right. What ByuN is doing here, he knows that the majority of the Protoss army is currently at the engagement down south. He's probably going to have to give up on this planetary fortress. But he can strike back in the meantime on any of the other lines of static defense, because Protoss really can't split up their units much. Like, those Tempests are a little bit cheaper in supply now than they once were, but it's not easy to really split up this type of Protoss army. And right now, for example, Australia, I mean, this expansion over here, this expansion of static defense is going to be vulnerable. New static defense, though, is going to be replacing the old. And Australia will be producing another one of those lines. Look at the beautiful, rich Vespian gas, though. Yay. That's 8 gas right over there, rather than the conventional 4. Pew. Okay. So how do you break this as a Terran player now? I mean, honestly, nukes would not be a bad idea. These type of fights, though, I mean, clumped up Terran armies don't really like Storm much. He is breaking through a lot of those expensive Protoss troops too, though. I love the Liberator going in around the back just to be annoying. Stalkers are going to be able to finish this off, but still going to force some multitasking, and maybe most importantly, it's going to make it difficult for Estrella to ever be fully maxed out, because he wouldn't be able to really warp in additional units. Tempest production, though, is kicked up, right? We're up to 5 right now, all at the same time. ByuN is sitting at a meager 11 command centers right now. Ay, ay, ay. Are you even trying, ByuN? Look at the banks, though. Weirdly enough, look at this very strange approach. Estrella is doing a slow push with Mass Tempest, Storm, and then Static Defense. I have seen this before, but not in a while. And the last few times I saw it, it did not work out for Protoss, because at some point, because they're so split, the Static Defense lines that is, it usually doesn't work out for them. But if ByuN keeps on headbutting with the main fight, I mean, he's effectively saying, yo, I am okay fighting the fully maxed out Protoss army, and then on top of it also some of Static Defense all at the same time. I mean, oh no. Mama's trying to sit on the Liberator again. She remembers the previous game. Careful, Mama. We do, by the way, have additional starports, or sorry, additional Ghost Academies coming up, and a tactical nuke. Yeah, Mothership is gonna crush it again. Maybe. Man, I'm getting extreme deja vu from the previous match. There we go. I feel like all of these scenarios happened in the previous game. Very different map, but Mama kept her alive for another minute. Mothership likes to play with her food first. We see this a lot in nature. Ooh, I love the idea of a static defense, actually. Or, sorry, a stasis ward over there in the mix. Very fun to see. Tactical nuke. Number 1. Flying across the map. And I think this is smart. Against those static defense lines, it'll be difficult to break it with your Terran army when the entirety of the Protoss ball is sitting on it. But you can, of course, nuke it from a distance. And that is like a good, like, 4 or 5 structures there going down. Obviously, there we go. Triple nuke coming up. Obviously, nukes are gas, right? Like, they are 100 gas each. Static defense is only minerals here for Estrella, so you are always going to be trading gas out for minerals. So you can't really get too crazy about it, but I don't hate it. Nice little fight over here, though, for Estrella, who also ended up denying one of the bases in the top left. And he's striking back right now, even without the static defense. The Mothership is here. She's been inspiring the entire Protoss strategy, it seems. Colossi from the low ground, shooting lasers. And obviously, fully upgraded Tempest do deal a lot of damage. You have to be careful, though. Those Vikings are getting real close. Nice snipes right there by ByuN. Good target firing. He's going to be able to get one more for sure. A lot of Stalkers reinforcing this now, but that is an awful lot of supply caught up in Stalkers that I feel like aren't too useful. Yeah, mostly just blinking underneath, I guess, is what we do. Time Warp does go down. Big Storm, though, makes it difficult to back up with the Vikings. Keep in mind that Time Warp doesn't just reduce movement speed, but also attack speed, which is massive. It's a 50% attack speed reduction, too. Tempest production, though, is extremely high still. And if you look at the banks, Estrella is still cruising. He can maintain these sort of fights for a lot longer than ByuN, who is, for all intents and purposes, broke. This man has got so much economy, but somehow he's got no money. ByuN is desperately swiping credit cards right now just to try and max out again. Obviously, though, he's got orbitals, right? And with 8 orbitals, I mean, he's been scanning liberally, like he would never be running out of cash. But maybe dropping some of that energy on mules would not be a bad call. Estrella, though, falls back again to the good old safety of the static defense line. We did a little bit of adventuring out onto the map. Now we're going back to the static defense. A Liberator being a nuisance. That's okay. Look at ByuN, though, right? Like, previously you had no cash. You wait just a little while, and he's back up to 2,000 minerals. Dude, Mama has been aggressive, eh? Ever since that Liberator kill in the previous game, she's been going out on adventures by herself. Trying to crush those Terran units. Tactical nuke. Number 2. Flying across the map, this time around, aiming for the mineral line. In the meantime, though, we have an engagement happening over here, too, meaning that Estrella can't possibly be looking around trying to find the red dot. The fight over here is not terrible for Protoss, I don't think, but he's losing a lot. In the meantime, the mineral line has also disappeared in the blink of a nuke. Vikings, though, are chasing this all the way down, and I think, yeah, this is about as good an engagement here as ByuN can now hope for. Protoss army certainly sticking around for a little bit longer than it really should. Mama is going back at it again, man. Look at Mama single-handedly holding down the fort on the other side of the map. That could have been a disaster with another one of those mineral lines disappearing. Reinforcing Stalkers, though, have now shown up on the main engagement. ByuN may be overstaying his welcome a little bit, too. Mama! Mama actually was the one doing the killing. Yeah, she put a laser against his head. Tactical nukes! I'm already starting to lose count, but I believe this is nuke number 4. I think it makes a lot of sense against this type of engagement. Nukes are very niche these days, but they can be extremely good in the right situation. And lucky for us, the Terran units don't have to worry about any of the radiation or anything along those lines. Because, you know, the average lifespan of a... Oh, we have Mama going at it again. The average lifespan of a Marine is like 5 minutes, maybe. Dude, Mama is saving the day. Mama has been absolutely phenomenal so far. If we were calling MVPs in StarCraft 2, unit of the game, maybe you can vote for it. Like they do in Formula 1, you know, where they vote for a driver of the day. Unit of the day, the MVP here is for certain the Mothership. What about the Tempest, though? Maybe the Tempest can try and snatch that advantage. The Storms are nowhere to be seen anymore because the EMPs have been absolutely monstrous. And ByuN is trying to do the same thing as he did in the previous game. He has now entirely depleted his gas bank, though. So he has a lot of minerals, but no gas available anymore. Now Motherships. Oh my god, Mama is angry. Mama's dropping the time warp. Mama, no! No! She's gone. But has she sacrificed herself for the greater good? Because she bought time. The time warp did allow the Protoss reinforcements to show up. Estrella is suddenly striking back with a vengeance. I think she deserves to be reincarnated, Estrella. I think you need to do the right thing, man. Luke, I know we're kind of strapped for minerals and gas right now, but I feel like we can spend 400, okay? He disagrees. Okay, now because ByuN has no gas, or very little, he's gone back to a lot of Marine production. And last time I checked, Marines are not ideal against this type of Protoss bull. Do it for the fans, Estrella. Look, I know that I'm casting this from replay, and there is absolutely 0% chance that you would be thinking about fans whilst you're playing this game. But I feel like you owe it to the fans to make another Mothership. Build the step Mothership, Estrella. Do the right thing, man. The Viking numbers, currently at 9. Tactical nuke number 5, 6? 7? I don't know. I think 5. Flying across the map again. And ByuN is using it as an opportunity to slowly choke another expansion. These are some long games, by the way. If you only ever watch my content, you may be under the assumption that the average game of Terran versus Protoss is about 30 minutes long. I think the average game of TVP at the pro level is like 6 minutes. I'm not even exaggerating. Anyways, ByuN is striking again while the iron is hot. I would love to see a new Colossus added into the mix again. I feel like a Colossus or two could be really quite nice. And a mothership. Did I already mention the mothership? I think I've mentioned it. Problem is, Estrella has also run out of Vespian gas. So that means we may very well be going back to Zealots and Marines in the future. I mean, it's kind of starting to look like it, right? Usually you climb the tech ladder, but then like a bell curve, when the resources start running low again, you go back to the absolute basics. And Marine Marauder Medevac is really good. Zealots are nice, but I don't love them nearly as much in the later stages of the game as I enjoy Marine Marauder Medevac. Tactical nuke again to the bottom right. What little gas we have... Oh, well, it's already gone. We didn't even see the ghost die. But what little gas we have is being spent onto tactical nukes. ByuN did take a lot of his Vespian refineries now, right? So, yeah, this in particular is going to give him a nice little boost for a while. This one over here is also a rich gas geyser, so... he's going to be able to get some more income here. And I'm liking this position here for ByuN a ton. Showing us how you can deal with the late game of Protoss. Slowly but surely, he's inching closer to another victory. Still, this is a Protoss army that needs to be respected. How many times have we seen one disruptor or one storm change the tide of battle? Yeah, ByuN has gone back again to a lot of Marine production, but one thing that Marines are also is, well, very low in HP. They have very real damage possibility, but they only have a low amount of hit points. So all of those flimsy units are a target for all the splash-dealing units here of Estrella, who's now inviting the Terran into a choke point. Still, though, there's just not enough here. In the meantime, we do have a counterattack. Now, this is a very significant counterattack, too. Looks like Estrella decides to all-army hotkey, though. All of those units up north, decides to send them back again. I don't mind it. The problem is, without those units, I think Estrella is going to have to give up on the Nexus here. This one could have been a kill as well, but ByuN looked at it. He saw there was no mining anyways, so what's the point? Orbital commands, though, are lifted. 14 SCVs did die. Liberator production has kicked in again for ByuN, but he needs them right now to try and deal with this type of army. Currently, he had a cycle of Vikings coming out of those starports, but Vikings are not going to be any good here. Orbital commands are actually burning. That little Zealot run-by is going to force ByuN to sit back for a little bit. I mean, that's a lot of Vikings dying here. Ay, ay, ay. Yo, these Zealots hurt that I enjoy Marine Marauder Medevac more in the late game, and they're showing us why they are still a unit to be reckoned with. Main army over here, though. ByuN is smelling blood in the water, but he's honestly overextending. ByuN is saying, yo, get out of my game. But I don't believe that this game is quite over yet. Storms over here could be juicy. Yeah. It's not like ByuN is mining that much. Backing up over here is good. Base over here in the top left, I guess, is the main lifeline, but ByuN, I don't think he realizes that there are more and more expansions down south. No, he knows about them. He just, maybe a bit of a misread. Estrella really needs to get those Vespian gas geysers going, though, right? And that's the big problem. He does have 4. Wouldn't mind seeing this one maybe fully saturate as well, but it's not like he's in a terrible spot. It's just difficult to really constantly supply this army with High Templar and Tempests. They're just a very gas-heavy unit. Every time, though, ByuN goes back up north. And this is just a difficult position for him to break through. I like this movement here a lot. Honestly, I would like to see Terran try to take this base over here. In the meantime, down south, double planetary? Australia doesn't care about double planetary. Well, the planetary did kill the High Templar, but that's 2 of the CCs down the drain. And maybe more importantly, it's a positional advantage, right? Because this base right now becomes a hell of a lot easier to defend with these planetaries here not being an issue. Base in the top left did end up going down. So good kill right there for ByuN. I mean, he's trading a potential mining base for a base that was already fully run out. But positionally, I don't mind this as a trade too much for Australia. Australia, though, is still lower in supply, right? But these armies are dangerous. We also have some of the little bit of mining here getting shut down right now. Fully upgraded zealots hit very hard. You do have to respect them. Tempest going up north. He never got the +3 shields research, by the way, which is something worth noting. Liberator in the far bottom right with 9 confirmed kills, working away at that mineral line slowly but surely. Australia slow maxing, right? So rather than rapidly reinforcing everything, like he could warp in like 10 stalkers here. He's slowly remaxing it, spending his money on more important units instead. You can always max out in a pinch, and sometimes it's tempting. But you really don't want to be caught with too many gateway units at this stage in the game either. And does ByuN know about this one? Yeah, he knows about it. He's just not really addressing the expansions in the far bottom right all too much. Good number of kills though on this lib. 13 workers is not bad whatsoever. Tactical nuke goes in right now, and ByuN is trying to address this base. This is a critical expansion for Australia, who's just so far behind in supply right now. His army, though, is still big. Nice Nova. Nice nuke. Probes did run away. Looks like a snipe will complete onto that High Templar. Command center surrounded by Protoss infrastructure, but the big fight over here, you gotta be careful, man. Those storms are so powerful. Zealots going in around the back as well. ByuN, you gotta get out of there, man. Lift up. Lift up. You can't really stand here and fight. I don't believe it. He decides to land the Vikings. There's no way this is the right choice. Is it? Australia still has some money remaining. Oh. Nah, I think it's still okay. It's still fine. But man, is that risky. The supply count is a little bit deceiving, though, because there's 12 medevacs up in the air, and there's about as many bio units here as there are, well, medevacs. Both players effectively on, like, one base and a little bit of mining. ByuN is screaming, get out of my game. And I agree with him. But also, it feels a little flimsy still. It's a lot of those low HP medevacs right now. They have no energy either. Protoss army going all the way back up north. Disruptors here are kicking in again. I think going a full ground army right now makes sense. Australia can't really reliably tech switch very quickly anymore. But what he can do, obviously, is just, well, deny any of the flying units by making a ground-based army instead. Another orbital command does bite the dust. And Australia is not somebody that will ever go down without a fight. Oh, actually, the orbital command does not die. It looked like its HP bar was already fully empty, but not quite the case. Bunch of stalkers in the middle of the map. 3 of them end up falling. Yeah, the medevacs are empty, despite the fact that he's got the regen upgrade, which is pretty wild. This many medevacs just shows you how much fighting there's been going on over the last few minutes. Okay, storm. Good storm. Very good storm. Another decent one. Disruptors! Oh, that was like 6 ghosts just like that. Australia backs up right now to the safety of the static defense, but I don't believe he's got the numbers anymore. One of the medevacs is full of units. I mean, we do have a big zealot warp in again. 69 supply. Wait, am I dumb? Oh, I thought the medevacs were actually fully out of energy, but they were fully energied out of their minds. That's what's going on. They regen so rapidly that even after the engagement, they were all the way back full again. I was tripping myself up there, man. The Caduceus reactor ability is actually kind of insane. Yeah, they're just all full in a heartbeat. Scratch anything I said. Looks like we're sharing a mineral line. Aww. Can you feel the love? Yeah, this is beautiful. Why do we have to be fighters? Why can't we all just get along? Why don't we just share the mineral line together? Storm on the high ground, though. Ooh. Okay, he sees the Templar hiding. Estrella decides to move it out of the position. Nexus all the way in the far top left is going to get denied. And I think with ByuN taking up shop right over here, it is going to be an extremely difficult battle for Estrella to win. I still got an army though, man. Like every time I think this game is over, I look at the army. There's High Templar, there's Disruptors, like there's like 24 Zealots. Still to be respected. Now that was a good engagement right there though. Ooh, a decent one at least at the start with the Disruptors going down. The High Templar do let the Terran army know that they need to get off their lawns. ByuN almost doubling the opponent's supply though, and that is big, right? 103 army versus 57. But you can also see here that it's a difficult game for the players to read. Like, we've had several moments here where I feel like ByuN could have maybe gone in for the attack move and just won. But he can't possibly get the full read anymore. It's very easy sometimes to forget that as viewers, we have full information on the game, but the players don't have any of the supply intel, right? Like, they're just trying to deal with the game and make educated guesses. But if you look right here, yeah. Ultimately, this army right here for ByuN is just a little bit too big. And ByuN decided to go for the slow suffocation over the course of about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. He got the job done. It's very different from the way that ByuN used to play, like a half year or so ago, where he was just doing the split pushing and the non-stop doom dropping into the opponent's main base. But in this particular, well, at least in this particular series, and in some of the previous series I've seen him play lately, he is just slowly suffocating his opponents. And it takes about, I don't know, 40 minutes or so in this particular game, but he gets the job done twice.